Hi, Christy.
Hi, Jeff.
We're recording now.
The many hours of conversation you and I have had, we've had probably half of them that haven't been recorded.
You know what we should do? We should start a podcast.
You think? Let's call it the why and the buy.
All right.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Why and the Buy podcast. I'm Christy Walters, and I'm here with my co-host, Jeff Bajorek. Hi, Jeff. How's it going?
Hey, Christy. How are you?
I'm doing well. So we have a very special guest with us today, Phil Murphy. Hi, Phil.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So Phil and Jeff have a long history together. So I'm going to let Jeff take it from here and introduce Phil and tell us what we're going to talk about today.
Phil Murphy is a guy that was an integral part of the first sales organization that I joined. And one of the things that I really loved about working with Phil is that I always learned something. Phil is one of those guys, and there are only a handful of these, if there's a handful of these in every sales organization, who will actually talk about sales and selling with you. That was one of the reasons that I feel like I was able to really grow and develop in that first sales role with a lot of the insight that Phil was able to provide me with as a young guy. Phil is not a much older guy than me, but with a lot of sales experience under his belt. He's going to be a great guest today, and I'm really glad he was able to join us.
Excellent. I'm excited to hear more about Jeff before he was this rock star podcaster sales coach.
We're not going to talk about that today, Christy. I'm not the guest. Phil is the guest.
I have some insight for you, though. But if we need to go there, I'll be happy to.
That's it. There we go. We'll turn the recording off, wink, wink, and see what we can come up with.
Awesome. So, Phil, thanks for joining us. What on earth are you doing here?
You know, my journey to get here is an interesting one. Some people want to be in sales. A lot of people think they can be in sales, or some people don't know that they're salespeople. I guess I learned along the way a long time ago that I was actually a sales guy. My background is actually in golf, and growing up, I always worked at country clubs, and I got to know a lot of people that were high in business. And what I recognized very early on in my life and career is everybody is just the same, whether you're a CEO or you're Nurse Betty that's helping a doctor. Everybody is exactly the same. So I just treat everybody the exact same way. And what I found is by doing that and treating people the correct way and just normal, you can sell along the way.
One of the conversations I remember, I don't remember at which establishment we were bellied up to, which bar, but we were talking about that very concept. And if you treated everybody like your best customer and you realize that everybody's possibly or a potential customer, you kind of treat people a little bit differently. And I think that was one of the things that Phil and I always used to talk about, is that there are potential customers everywhere you go. They're all around. And specifically where Phil and I came together was in a medical device arena. So Phil's still in the medical device arena, selling a lot of different things into orthopedics specifically. And that's where I got my start. And one of the things that we noticed was a way to differentiate ourselves was that the orthopedic surgeon was not always the only customer in the room, in the office. There's always something else or somebody else responsible for the things that are going on. And so many people lose sight of that.
I absolutely agree. I always think that in our business, and I think it's in general in all sales businesses and organizations, a good sales rep or a good sales leader is always an investigator, if you will. It's not just the surgeon who is the decision maker most of the time, but there's also a lot of people that are underneath that decision maker that help the sale go along the way. And you just have to ask a lot of questions, listen a lot, and then sometimes listen covertly, which what I mean by that is when you're in public spaces and different events, listen, there's always somebody talking.
Look for that opportunity. I love that term that good salespeople are good investigators. That's so true, because oftentimes we get too wrapped up in just the widget that we're selling or the service that we're selling, and we forget to put it in context for the customer. And if you don't do that investigation, then you're going to lose that context.
Absolutely. You have to figure out who you're selling to, why they want to buy, and what they're actually looking for. Yeah, your product, whatever that product is. In my case, it's medical devices, knee braces, and sports medicine equipment. But the reality is they're going to be buying not necessarily just for your product, but for a lot of other reasons, and we have to figure that out.
Well, I would imagine, Phil, that a guy who sells as much as you do probably has really, really pretty brochures and a really shiny, bright, flashy website.
Yes, those are tools that are given to us by the marketing team. The website in today's world is actually important for a different reason than just the old-fashioned leave behind. But as I've told my reps, and I think anybody in my position or anybody in sales, if they haven't recognized it by now, that piece of paper, that brochure is in my experience is a crutch. And if you leave it behind, the junior sales rep will feel like they've done their job. And hey, I went to a lot of places today. But if you didn't get the information who to talk to next time you come there, if you didn't go into that meeting, whether you're just doing a cold call or you had a meeting, you didn't have a goal to get something out of that to come back, all you did is left a piece of paper. Might as well said anything on it because it went bye-bye.
So Phil, how many new versus experienced sales reps do you have on your team?
That's a great question. And we have a mixed bag of sales reps in our organization. We have the experienced ones that have been around in business a long time. And then we also have the very young, newer ones. The dichotomy between them are very interesting because us old sales reps, we get a little complacent. We get a little set in our ways, whereas the young sales reps where those reps were 10, 15 years ago. It's fun for me to try to draw the parallel to the two of them back together, which is also a challenge in what I do, breaking old habits.
Right.
The thing that kind of unites the two, though, and I think this is where, I mean, the best managers are able to get this out of their reps, is understanding the concepts and the principles behind the way you do it now and why what you do works versus why what maybe a new or a junior sales rep with all the new technology and everything, why what they're trying to do could work, right? I mean, you know that leaving shiny brochures behind doesn't do anything for you. Meanwhile, the person brand new to selling thinks that that's what they need to do, and realize that they don't think about the idea that if the website could sell for you, then you wouldn't need a job. So if I'm here, it must be for a role other than to just direct people to the website or, read this shiny piece of paper. But the way that people do things and the way that people are accustomed to doing things now are different than they were like 15 years ago, right? When you and I first got together. But what are the principles or the concepts that bind or draw those two parallels? I mean, how do you search for? I mean, how do you find those and how do you convey those messages?
I'll give you an answer, but before I give you that answer, if I knew that answer, I'd be the guy that's on the website, and I'd be the guy telling you right now what's going on. So the key to that is actually learning myself, and because. Yeah, I feel like I'm good at stuff, but I also have to grow and learn from the junior reps because they bring a different perspective as I look at it. But how you bring those two together is you have to listen and have to try to merge them together. And the way I go about doing that is sales. So regardless of the product, people, in my opinion, I believe I'm right, they buy it for a reason. It's not always your product. It's a lot of times it's you and who's selling and how you go about it. But within that, there is a sales process that has to happen. I mean, it's you present your options based on what you have investigated, give a trial close or pivot and close, and then you keep going through the process. Those things have to happen. Now, how those happen are in an individual way, but that process has to happen for a sale to occur.
Well, I mean, you've got to align the whys, even though the hows are different, right?
Correct.
And isn't it interesting, too, that I think in every industry, experience can very easily equal complacency. It becomes very, very easy to fall into, although you're not handing out shiny brochures anymore, it's very easy to glad hand and go back to the place you've always been and not show up in new and exciting ways and really investigate the way that the business is changing. How do you coach your experienced reps to stay away from that trap?
Again, great question. And a challenge that it's a challenge. It frankly is our number one challenge. Complacency is a problem, including myself. in sales, I went through the process. Those are the things that have to happen, but something that also has to happen in any sales organization, and specifically in what I do with Miltech, we have to have a relationship that is different than a sales rep or relationship at a deeper level. As I'm looking over your shoulder, I see the yes behind you. I see pictures behind. Right. These are all things that you pay attention to as a sales rep. So these are things that you have to continually coach and remind people. So with the older, more seasoned reps, to get out of complacency, I have to recognize it, one, plus I have to ride with them, plus I have to have a conversation with them. I have to have a relationship with them so I can recognize where they're at. And then we go back to the beginning. I'll give you a real world example. Just the other day, I'm talking to one of, I call friend, but also a seasoned sales rep. He was telling me what he's doing, and I don't remember the details because I stopped listening to him. And when I knew that he was complacent, I just knew that I had to pivot him away from that and say, "Hey, did you ever think about doing this?" And then in sales speak, I shut up and then let him talk. So right. It's in that long-winded answer was just the ability to recognize it, and it's a challenge for me still. So I'm learning every day.
What I love about what you said there, Phil, is the fact that you had a relationship. And this is not just about a buyer and a seller. This is about a coach and a sales rep, right? And you as that coach, really, you were connected enough to see that challenge starting to surface before it becomes a real problem. And I think a lot of sales managers really struggle with managing all the things that you have to do up, as well as keeping an eye on those relationships and making sure that you're supporting your team in the right way.
Well, and if you think about it too, the other thing that I picked up on is, in this case, Phil's coaching a junior rep, a new rep, or even a more seasoned rep who's kind of gotten complacent. In any of his reps, he treated them like customers, not like his reps. He treated them the same way, kind of touching on what we just talked about a few minutes ago, but there's that listening, there's that noticing, there's that scope of attention that is beyond and even behind the person who's right in front of you. It's what is going on around you. And I think, Phil, to your credit, that's one of the things that is really missing when it comes to sales managers, and not only just their ability to coach, but their willingness to coach and develop that talent underneath them.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that still falls on me too. I mean, I gave you a good example, but I had my days, I had my weeks. We all get caught in our ruts, and with the relationships that I have with my team, luckily I have a team and a boss that is. We all have the relationships that allow us to have that conversation, even when it's me saying, "Hey, what are you doing?"
Right.
It's a good thing. But that doesn't happen over time, and it happens over consistency. So it's consistency with your reps, consistency with your business, and everything comes back down to consistency, relationships, and hard work. This is my quick phrase that I say to everybody. In sales, I really break it down to, outside the process is this: you wake up, show up, and follow up. You beat 80 to 90% of sales reps just doing that.
There's a lot to be said about answering your phone when it rings and returning an email when it gets sent to you. And there's a surprising amount of mediocrity that's out there. If you can just do those three things better than a lot of other people, you're going to be surprised at how successful you can really be. I mean, hey, if someone else can be successful while being mediocre, so can I.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. But do you want to be like everybody else? And that's where you want to take a step above everybody by working on your sales skills. And that's where all this other stuff really matters.
You've been in your role as a sales leader for over 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
What has been the biggest change over that time period? Obviously, social media is huge, but what are you seeing that's changing in the way that your reps have to attack their day? Anything?
Yeah, there's so many different ways I could go with that, but I'll try to keep it to a bullet point list for you. But the first part of it is, it's not that we were bad planners when I was younger, but you didn't have to have as much of a detailed plan. You wake up and you would go out and just make sales calls and then make sure you had good follow-up trickling system. But because of social media, because how people communicate nowadays, the face-to-face is still very important in our business. But the connections and the ability to make a connection via social media or even just via email. And email is actually kind of starting to go away. More people are talking through LinkedIn, as we did briefly before this call.
Right.
And it's the new way. So the younger crew know that. The more seasoned reps got to get out of habits. But because the younger crew do know that, they have another challenge that still applies, is being able to have the face-to-face relationship, not just like the computer that we have right now, but actually physical relationship that you have to have when you're there. So there's unique challenges that I'm seeing on both sides.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and generationally, I mean, as things change, I mean, just over the past 10 years, and the rate of change is not going to slow down anytime soon, certainly. But I think, ultimately getting back to understanding why people buy the way they do, being able to adapt to people buying for different reasons than they did in the past. Your features and benefits don't matter as much as the other kind of intangible factors. And I mean, that's one of the things that I noticed about you very early on, Phil, is we would have conversations and I would say, so what do you think about this new product? What do you, it's got this and it's got this and it's got this. And you tell me, well, none of that matters. I'd say, wait a second. We just got out of product training. They just, spouted off a bunch of great stuff that got me fired up. So why you don't think that'll get our customers fired up? Why do you believe that features and benefits of a product fire up salespeople more than they fire up customers?
Dang, you guys, you're definitely seasoned in this, because yet again, another great question. Those are marketing people that are their design and their job is to get a sales force revved up and selling. So in any situation, and I'm a natural sales guy, so this is a problem in everything I do, but in every conversation, you're selling me, I'm selling you. And that's in both personal and business. It is a fact, in my opinion. Marketing, their job is to get you fired up. And I'm not saying discount any of those features and benefits, because you do need to know them and understand the why this customer should ultimately want whatever product you're selling. Why I think it's not important is depends on the type of call. So if we're going to show this to a new customer, new doctor, or whoever we're trying to show something new to, you're not going to get in there because of your features and benefits. You're not going to get in there because of this product. You're going to get in there because of the work that you did to be able to get that opportunity. So what I try to explain to reps, both seasoned and new, is you have to earn the right to have the conversation of features and benefits. A sales rep that has not earned that right will come in and say, hey, can I get 5 minutes with Dr. X? Dr. X will stand over there in the corner, and then sales rep B will do the features and benefit dump, forget the close. Doctor will say, that's awesome. I'll then use it. And then doctor walks away and rep walks out and says, that was awesome. And then I think I said this to you once or twice, but I said it to other reps. So what's the plan and how are we going to get that brace? Normally you hear crickets and kind of that dumb dog look. So that's, I'm not discounting the features and benefits, but why I say that it's not important is to be able to present those features and benefits. You have to have done the work to earn the right to even have that conversation.
Are the features and benefits the reasons they ultimately say yes? Or are there other things that you need to address, right? I mean, there are other people in the operating room, so to speak. There are other people involved in the sale that aren't necessarily the focus. I mean, do you think that sales reps get too hung up on the features and benefits and forget about the other reasons that people buy?
Absolutely. So they get caught up in the features and benefits and do the features and benefits stuff, and then they don't know why they're not buying from you for whatever that product is. And most of the time, that reason is you haven't done that homework behind to see. Again, this is another real world example in my business. A doctor wants a knee brace prescribed, and they want to know that that's a great product. I'm glad you showed it to me. Now they want you to do it, and they never want to hear about it again. So now it's the rep's job to make sure that process happens. A lot of reps will forget those other little details. Sales is fun, but there's also a lot of details. So that goes back to the investigating part, because you have to know your customers and you have to know why they're buying from you.
Yeah, today you almost have to be a super person, right? Superwoman, Superman, right? To really be effective in the sales arena, because there isn't that old world show up, shake hands, have a slick story. We just did a deal and we're done. Now it extends well beyond that. So that whole concept of hunter versus farmer really gets morphed together, right?
Absolutely, I agree. It's just the different hats you wear even in one sales call is you've earned the right. You have the sales actual presentation, and then you get the sale, and then you have putting another hat, your organizational hat or your conductor hat, if you will, to make sure everything that you talked about happens. And that's actually another big thing that I talk about is whatever you say you're going to do, you do it. And if you don't do that, you'll never get that shot again.
Yeah. Trust is a huge factor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely agree.
So Phil, what are you reading?
Oh, see, that's such a tough question for me. I'm a skimmer. I am. So I'm not specifically reading a ton of things, but if I could find the book, because I knew that question was coming. Can't find it. Where'd it go? I can't find it right now.
It's probably in your car. That's where you were reading it last, right?
No, I put it down. It's First Break All the Rules. That's
Marcus Buckingham.
Yes. I've heard good things about it, and I hadn't read the whole thing yet. So, but overall, I am a skimmer. I don't read a lot of books. I guess my ADD kicks in, and that's where the sales guy part of me kicks in.
That's where audible.com gets a lot of my business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Audible.com, not even a sponsor of this very program.
That's right. Exactly.
But, listen at 1.5x on the speed and you save 25% of the time. It's interesting. Well, you know what? I mean, and you bring up an interesting point, though, Phil, is, it's hard. We got so many different notifications coming after us. We got so many different people asking for our time. Just when you sit down and you're ready to take 10 minutes even to read something or to review your notes or to prepare for your next sales call, that meeting in 10 minutes, all of a sudden a customer calls you and they need something. And, everything now is needed yesterday, right? You don't have enough time to delegate that task or wait. And you've got to decide whether or not to take that call. And you know that you have some customers who you're not allowed to not take that call. I think it's easy to understand why salespeople have that kind of ADD, but I think it's another thing to work with it. And I mean, when you skim, do you skim books? Do you skim articles? Do you spend a lot of time on, in at different websites? I mean, where do you like to go to make yourself better? Other than the Why and the Buy podcast, of course. I mean, we want to be sure.
Well, I absolutely. I get the podcast and I get the Sunday email. So and we definitely brought that out to the group. But to use your point is, I have signed up for a lot of different things like that. And they're little blurbs for us ADD challenge guys that you read. And then, of course, in social media days on LinkedIn and Facebook, anytime you've clicked on something salesy, magically you get 100 other ones.
Yeah.
But as I've said to a lot of people that read books, the message is typically the same, just delivered in a different mechanism. But in my understanding of sales, it's you have to wake up, you have to work really hard, you have to wear many hats, you have to be adaptive, have relationships, and then have ability and a willingness to close. Because closing is uncomfortable and silence is uncomfortable, which a lot of times is some of the best closes.
That tension is necessary.
Yes.
That tension is what creates the sale. And you're right. That's one of the most important things about selling. It's also one of the most uncomfortable things about selling, and, putting up with a little bit of that discomfort. People, we talk about being more comfortable, getting uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. That's not just about growth. That's about necessity. And you've got to, how many times do you get set up right to that point in the sales process where you got to ask the question? You got to pop the question, so to speak. And I'll tell you what, it was easier to pop that question to my wife back in the day than it was on some of these, sales that I needed to close. It's a really uncomfortable thing. But becoming more comfortable, getting uncomfortable that's about selling. That's about getting things done. And that gets overlooked a lot.
I feel like I live in that space every day, but
that means you're closing a lot of sales, though.
There you go.
I'm closing. I like to believe that I have a high close rate, but that number of people times your skill level equals your success that's a true statement. So if you're really bad at sales, but you talk to a lot of people, you'll still be fine. If you talk to very few people, but you're really good at sales, you'll still be good. But the recognition in that uncomfortable piece that you were just talking about, it's a sales call. Who you're talking to knows you're there to sell them something. And when you don't sell them something, when you don't close and you talk yourself out of it, you get to that point where you're going to close and you just keep talking because you're afraid to do it. Your customer's confused because they know you're there to sell you something. So I've learned that a long time ago through my own mistakes. And those are things that I have to continue to try to teach on a daily basis.
The art of not talking.
Correct.
That should be a podcast right there.
It really should be.
Stop talking. Just like you've given all the points, you've done all the work. Just stop talking.
That would have been fun. You asked me the first question. I could have said yes and just.
Oh yes, right. Now that doesn't quite work for podcasts.
No.
As fabulous as we all look on video, not everyone's seeing us right now.
Right.
So, Phil, what would you say is your why? You can take this question any way you want. We ask everybody who's a guest here this question, but why do you do what you do?
Perfect question. All the other ones are good questions. This is a perfect question, and this is actually what I talk and ask of pretty much everybody that works with me. Now, the challenge is trying to get to know it, but I ask every one of our reps, why do you wake up in the morning? Why do you get out of bed? For me personally, my goals are this. First and foremost is my time. I like to control my time. That sounds so backwards in sales, but I do. And because I control my time, it allows me to do, which my second goal is, and second reason why I wake up, which really is my first, is my family and my kids. If I control those two things and keep always going after those things, everything else follows. Some people say their motivation is money. Some people say they want to buy this. I'm stealing a quote. This is not my quote. This is from my past life at a large mortgage company. They would always say, money does not lead, money follows. And if you know why you wake up, and in my case I do, time in my family, my kids, all that other stuff will follow.
That's perfect. That is perfect.
Awesome.
Phil, I have so enjoyed having you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for making your time. This was a great conversation, and it went slightly different from our production notes, but I love the direction that we took, and I think leaders and sales reps, both new and experienced, will get something of value out of this.
Yeah, just blame it on me. We skewed from that's my fault.
Well, hey, I think ending on wake up, show up, follow up works for me. It's all really simple in the end.
It really
and stop talking, right?
Done.
No, not you.
Oh, dang, I thought I was off the hook. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed being on here, and I hope people can take some little snapshots of what we talked about and use it for the business.
Awesome. So where can we find you?
You can find me at www.myotech.net or under my email at philip.murphy@myotech.net. And
do you encourage people to reach out and connect with you on LinkedIn and tell you how inspiring they are, or do you want to be left alone?
You got to build your network. So absolutely. Please connect with me. I look forward to talking to everybody.
Awesome. Well, Phil, you've been a tremendous guest. The orthopedic sales community is better for having you in it. I know that I'm a better salesman for having you to call a friend, and I appreciate you coming on.
Wow. Well, thank you. I have some big shoes to fill now. Thank you.
Awesome. Christy, what do we have next week?
Oh, we have Mary Lou Tyler, who is the author of Predictable Prospecting. So this will be a really good interview. I'm interested to talk to Mary Lou, and that will be next week. And Jeff, you've got a sponsorship opportunity you want to talk about.
I do. We've got a sponsor. We've got a quote unquote sponsor for the podcast for this month. There is a charitable organization called Chosen Vision that I'm very involved with. I've seen the results firsthand of this amazing organization, and we've got a golf outing coming up. It's May 22nd. Essentially, I'm going to play 100 and some odd holes of golf. That is not an exaggeration. We play over 100 holes of golf in a day to raise money for this foundation and this organization, which builds homes to give adults with developmental disabilities, for lack of a better term, a normal life. These adults that would ordinarily have to stay with their parents get to move out, and they get to live with roommates and their supervision, and it's just an amazing outcome when you consider how big the steps are that these individuals take. They kind of grow up right in front of your face and right before your eyes. It's really, really, really amazing. So we've got a golf outing. There will be links to the Chosen Vision website, as well as a link to a page you can donate to the cause. And we'd really appreciate it if you check that out.
So what does that swing look like after 100 times?
You know what? It gets a little slower. But it's a great day, and it's just a lot of fun. When you think about all the people that are out there for the same reason, for the same cause, all doing a lot of good. I don't know why, but we typically get just outstanding weather, which is sometimes dicey in late May in Michigan, and it really doesn't even matter. There's just so many people out there for the right reasons. The why is very, very clear, and it's very rewarding.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. Thanks again to Phil, and we will see everyone next week. And Jeff, what do we say in the end?
Oh, well, when you know your whys, your hows and your whats get way better. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Why and the Buy podcast. If you liked us, subscribe. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, and really anywhere else you can get a podcast. And if you really liked us, then give us a 5-star review. We like those, and we like you too. Here at the Why and the Buy podcast, we've got our own house band. Christy and I think they're absolutely perfect for what we're trying to do with this podcast, and we hope you think so too. If you like them as much as we do, then you should check them out. They're called Haskins, and they're based in southeastern Michigan. You can find their music and more at haskinsmusic.com. Go check them out.